Going through all this material on Dame Maggie Smith,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
it really struck me, you know, she was more than just those sharp one-liners
Right.
and that withering stare. There was a lot more to her
Oh,
than
absolutely.
that, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, you think about those iconic roles, right? Professor McGonagall, the Dowager Countess. I mean, they're unforgettable.
Right.
But the tributes, the ones that really got me, they went beyond that. They went beyond the one-liners.
Yes.
It's like everyone was saying, yeah, she was witty, but
Exactly. And that but is so important, isn't it? It speaks volumes. Like take Miriam Margolyes, for example. She called Dame Maggie the best of the best. But the word that really jumped out at me was courage. We don't always put those two things together, the sharp wit and this idea of courage. What was it about Dame Maggie that made courage such a defining trait for her?
well, what's interesting is that Margolyes actually tied that courage directly to her early work.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about her breakout role, Desdemona, in Othello, opposite Laurence Olivier. This is 1965.
Wow.
And not just any Shakespeare production.
No.
Olivier, the titan of the stage, known for being incredibly demanding.
Oh, I bet.
So,
Wow, just picturing a young Dame Maggie, holding her own against Olivier himself. That's incredible.
oh, yeah,
That takes some serious guts, especially in a role as emotionally charged as Desdemona.
precisely. And to top it all off, she earned an Oscar nomination for that performance.
Wow.
So, I mean, you talk about Dame Maggie embodying courage. It's not just, anecdotal. It's woven into her career from the very beginning.
It really changes how you see those sharp-tongued characters she plays.
Nice.
Suddenly it's not just a queenly put-down. It's coming from someone who built a whole career on taking those risks, and meeting those challenges head on. And speaking of challenging, Daniel Radcliffe called her fiercely intelligent, which, knowing some of the on-set anecdotes I've heard, seems like maybe an understatement.
Yeah, well, and I think what Radcliffe's comment highlights is that her intellect wasn't confined to just, the script. This wasn't just someone who could deliver a line brilliantly.
Right.
It was someone who really understood, like, the mechanics of acting, the nuances of character.
Yeah.
And yeah, probably wasn't afraid to call out any nonsense she saw,
I bet. Which in an industry that often, let's face it, prizes politeness, maybe a little more than honesty sometimes, that's a power move all in its own, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
But here's the thing, though.
Mm.
As much as we remember that sharp wit, she also had this incredible ability to just, break your heart in a single scene.
Oh, yeah.
That vulnerability is just as much a part of her legacy, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, without a doubt. It's that contrast, that ability to go from that sharp wit to just raw vulnerability.
Right.
That's what makes her such an enduring figure, I think. We're captivated by the Dowager Countess's barbs one minute,
Right.
and then just utterly floored by her emotional depth the next,
Exactly. And it's not just, that she could do both, but she wove them together so seamlessly.
Yeah.
Like it all felt so real and so natural. Thinking about it, the lady in the van, that's a perfect example.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
I mean, she plays Miss Shepherd, this woman living in a van, and it's hilarious at points, but it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's such a departure, from those grand dame roles that we often associate with her, and yet
Right.
the performance is just as captivating. You see her pride, her struggles, her eccentricities, and Dame Maggie just embodies it all with such honesty.
It really makes you realize her range wasn't just, comedic timing versus dramatic, delivery. It was about finding that truth in each character, no matter how flawed or how unexpected they were, And to think she took on that role in 2015.
Yeah.
I mean, relatively late in her career, and still just knocked it out of the park.
Exactly, and it speaks to that dedication we were talking about, right? This is a woman who started in the 50s,
Yeah.
earned an Oscar nomination by 65,
Right.
and never stopped pushing herself to explore those complexities,
Right. It's not like she was content to just rest on her laurels.
No, not at all.
And it wasn't just that she was working consistently. She was commanding attention on the biggest stages,
Yeah.
alongside some of the most well-respected actors of her generation. I mean, that really says something not just about her talent, but but the respect that she earned within the industry.
Oh, absolutely.
And not just, for her talent, but for her work ethic.
Absolutely. And I think that respect really shines through in what people who worked with her had to say about her. Hugh Bonneville, who played the Earl of Grantham on Downton Abbey.
Of course.
He said, anyone who ever shared a scene with Maggie will attest to her sharp eye, sharp wit, and formidable talent.
Formidable. That's definitely a word that comes to mind. But there's this other layer, too, isn't there? This warmth.
Yes.
That you see come through in a lot of these tributes.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, intimidating talent, but also a real generosity of spirit.
Precisely. Leslie Nichol, who played Mrs. Patmore on Downton, she talked about, the cast being devastated, calling them a close group, and it's just, even with that sharp wit, Dame Maggie clearly touched people on a personal level as well, which I think is really lovely.
It paints such an interesting picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This idea that she could, command a room with her presence.
Oh, yeah.
But still foster this sense of genuine connection.
Yeah.
With those around her. Oh, what I wouldn't give to have been a fly on the wall during one of those, like, Downton Abbey rehearsals.
Oh, I know, right? To be a fly on the wall, can you imagine?
I know.
But even without actually being there, I think we get these little glimpses of what made her such a force from the people who worked with her.
Right.
And you think about Kristen Scott Thomas, she worked with Dame Maggie on Gosford Park.
Yeah.
And she said she took acting very seriously, but saw through the nonsense and razzmatazz.
Right.
Which I just love.
It speaks to that groundedness, that she had
Yeah.
this commitment to the craft above all else, which,
Exactly.
to be honest, in a world that can be as, glitzy and maybe even superficial at times.
Oh, absolutely.
As Hollywood can be, that's a rare quality.
It is.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that, true artistry often thrives, not necessarily in the spotlight,
Right.
but in those quiet moments of just, pure dedication.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hard work. And I think that dedication, it seems to have had this ripple effect on the people around her.
For sure.
You think about Emma Watson's tribute. She talked about how it took her a while to even process that she'd been acting alongside, a true definition of greatness all those years on Harry Potter.
Right.
Talk about, learning from the best. I mean,
Exactly.
it's like just being in her presence was a masterclass.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes you wonder, with a career like hers, spanning decades, I mean, did those iconic roles, did they overshadow some of maybe the hidden gems? Were there performances that might surprise us?
I think so. And, one that comes to mind, Tea with Mussolini.
Right.
She played this wonderfully eccentric, art-loving woman living in 1930s Italy.
Okay.
It was a supporting role, but she completely stole every scene she was in.
Of course.
Again, that ability to command attention, not with volume, but just with her presence.
It's interesting you say that, because when I think Dame Maggie Smith, I think, formidable,
Right.
commanding,
Yes.
But the word that seems to echo through all these tributes is love.
Yes.
It's clear that even with that sharp wit,
Yeah.
she was deeply loved
Mm-hmm.
and respected by those who knew her best.
Absolutely. And I mean, isn't that the mark of a life well lived?
Yeah.
To achieve incredible things in your career,
Right.
but to also be remembered for your kindness,
Right.
your humor, your humanity. I mean, it's everything, isn't it?
It really is. It makes you think, this is a woman who could, silence a room with a look, trade barbs with the wittiest minds, and then turn around and move you to tears with a single scene.
Yeah.
If you had to guess, what role do you think she might have considered her most impactful? The one that maybe went beyond the awards, the accolades, and really resonated with her.
Right, on a personal level, yeah.
Yeah, on a personal level.
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
And perhaps the most fitting tribute to Dame Maggie Smith is to revisit her filmography.
Yeah.
Look beyond just those iconic roles, those characters,
Right.
and discover for ourselves the depth, the complexity that she brought to every single role.
Beautifully said. And to our listeners, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Oh, yes.
What do you think Dame Maggie might have considered her most impactful role? Let us know, because the conversation doesn't end here.
Yeah.
Until next time, happy watching.